November of 2024, the PFL announced the purchase of Bellator Fighting Championships, bringing to an end the tenure of what was at one point MMA's second biggest promotion. The Bellator story is one of surprising highs and embarrassing lows, and today we look at the company's early years and the ideological figurehead who brought about its rise. Welcome to the INC, and this is the Bjorn Rebney era of Bellator. By the spring of 2009, mixed martial arts found itself in a difficult landscape. The post-Ultimate Fighter boom led to an influx of new promotions looking to cash in on the sport's success, but quickly collapsed under the weight of trying to compete with the UFC. Elite XC, Dream, and the IFL came and went despite huge financial backing, leaving the UFC and Strikeforce as the only major promotions in North America. MMA had proven to be one of the toughest roads to success in the business world, but it didn't stop another name from throwing his hat into the mix. Unlike many of his peers, Bjorn Rebney already had roots in combat sports. The Ohio University graduate had previously worked in sports law before becoming a business associate of several high-profile boxers, including Oscar de la Hoya and Sugar Ray Leonard. In the mid-2000s, Rebney left Leonard's promotion company to pursue his love of mixed martial arts, in particular establishing a promotion designed to exploit a flaw in the UFC's business model. During his fandom, Rebney had become disillusioned with the UFC's matchmaking, with fighters earning title shots in key matches for superfluous reasons over more deserving contenders. Rebney's solution was to build his promotion around tournaments, making sure the person holding the title come the end of the year had done so on merit.
And I can remember it as a kid watching these guys scour the audience and look for the promoter to scream out, "I deserve a shot at the title." And I can remember being a kid and turning to my dad and saying, why he just won? Why does he have to ask? Every other sport, you'd win the final game in baseball and you go to the World Series. Or you win the AFC Championship game and you're in the Super Bowl. You don't have to ask anybody. You don't have to wait for a guy in a shiny suit like this to say, "You know what, Giants? You get to go this year."
In 16 months, Rebney had attended 61 different meetings courting investment in the project, before finally securing funding from Plainfield Asset Management, a Connecticut-based hedge fund run by fellow MMA fan Tim Donaher. Scarred by the sport's recent failures, Rebney put sustainability at the heart of his pitch. The new promotion would intentionally be based in smaller venues to keep costs low, and aim to build fighters from the ground up rather than gamble on established stars. Rebney also looked to court the Latin American market, one he believed the UFC had overlooked during their mid-2000s expansion. This was evidenced by Rebney naming the promotion after the Latin word for warrior, Bellator. Bellator held its first event on April 3, 2009, at the Hard Rock Hotel in Hollywood, Florida. Featherweights and lightweights took center stage in the inaugural show, the highest profile being Bodog champion Eddie Alvarez and former Street Fighter Jorge Masvidal, while broadcaster ESPN Deportes gave a first commentary gig to some young kid named John Anik.
That will do it. No time to waste. 1 minute, 19 seconds into the opening round. Jorge Masvidal disposes of Nick Aguilar.
Both Alvarez and Masvidal would win their opening matches, with many expecting the two to square off come the season final, only for Street Jesus to suffer an inverted triangle to Toby Imada in one of the company's first viral moments. Alvarez went on to beat Imada come the final, joining Joe Soto, Lyman Good, and Hector Lombard as the company's inaugural champions. All four men would later go on to fight in the UFC, with Alvarez winning the company's lightweight title in 2016. Bellator continued its tournament format over its next 3 seasons, with tournaments whittling 8 fighters down to 1, with the winner challenging the incumbent at the end of the year. The 4 divisions were quickly expanded with heavyweight and bantamweight, as well as the company experimenting with its first strawweight division, several years before the UFC introduced its own version in 2014. The division had been built around Megumi Fujii, an unbeaten grappling ace who'd finished all but 2 of her fights via stoppage. Fujii was expected to make comfortable work of the strawweight tournament, only to suffer an upset loss in the final against 5-1 underdog Zoila Frausto. Frausto moved up to flyweight shortly after, and the division was quietly dropped by the promotion by the turn of the decade. It didn't take long for Bellator to build a cult following in the MMA community. The intimate settings and raw talent provided a contrast to the increasingly showbiz UFC. This was reflected with the company's new TV deals, with Fox Sports Net hosting seasons 2 and 3 before a long-term home with MTV. It was there where the company hosted its greatest ever fight, as unbeaten prospect Michael Chandler took on Eddie Alvarez for the lightweight title. The fight was all action from the start, as Chandler dropped Alvarez multiple times in the opening round before Alvarez fought back with precision striking, all while stuffing all of Chandler's attempts to get the fight to the mat. It appeared Alvarez's veteran guile would be enough to see off his raw opponent, until Chandler rocked Alvarez midway through the fourth before finishing the ailing champ with a rear naked choke, propelling the previously unknown Missouri fighter to company stardom.
There's the tap, and we have a new champion! Michael Chandler is Bellator's new lightweight world champion!
The fight was nominated by several publications as 2011's Fight of the Year, and played a key role in expanding Bellator's profile outside of its hardcore audience. The impact of the match may have been even greater had it not taken place the same day as Dan Henderson's war with Shogun Rua at UFC 139, the first example of bad luck which plagued the company throughout its later years. Chandler was one of a number of Americans who found success in the gray cage. Joe Warren, Pat Curran, and Ben Askren transferred their wrestling credentials to successful runs atop their respective weight classes, while Cole Conrad was set to do the same at heavyweight before leaving the sport to become a broker. Their achievements, however, faded in comparison to a slight 23-year-old from Brazil. Patricio Pitbull made his company debut beating William Romero at Bellator 15, before going on to break nearly every record the promotion had to offer, the most wins and title fights in company history, and later becoming its first two-division champion. Pitbull is widely considered Bellator's greatest ever fighter, and was considered one of the best to never fight for the UFC, prior to 2025 at least. With a talented roster and strong grassroots support, Bellator entered 2010 in rude health, with some even suggesting the company was threatening to surpass Strikeforce as the sport's second biggest promotion. Rebney was similarly bullish about such a claim. In October of that year, he challenged Strikeforce boss Scott Coker to pit his champions against his own in a series of cross-promotion super fights, including Eddie Alvarez versus Gilbert Melendez, Ben Askren versus Nick Diaz, and Hector Lombard versus Jacare Souza. While Coker wasn't opposed to the bouts taking place, the company's acquisition by Zuffa meant a concept never materialized. It was another UFC decision that impacted Bellator's next step. In 2011, the company announced a multi-million-dollar deal with Fox, effectively ending its longtime working relationship with Spike TV. To fill the void, Spike's parent company Viacom purchased a controlling stake in Bellator, moving all its future events to Viacom-owned channels in 2011, as well as commissioning the short-lived Ultimate Fighter ripoff, Fightmaster. Don't worry, we'll get around to covering it someday. On paper, the Viacom deal seemed like a perfect one for Bellator, providing the company with a strong financial footing to establish itself as an alternative to the UFC. But it inadvertently planted the first seeds that would eventually end Rebney's time with the promotion. While the tournament structure guided Bellator to its early success, Rebney's steadfastness in the concept caused friction with both fans and his new bosses. At Bellator 56, UFC veteran Jay Heron lost a controversial split decision to welterweight champion Ben Askren, and when Heron pushed for an immediate rematch, Rebney told the fighter he needed to enter next year's tournament if he wanted another shot. Heron would never fight for the promotion again, and later stated that he needed to return his signing bonus in order to secure a release from his contract. Further contractual issues surrounded one of the company's biggest stars. In October of 2012, Eddie Alvarez completed the last fight of his contract by defeating Patricky Pitbull at Bellator 76, amid reports that the fighter was securing a move to the UFC. Rebney, however, stated that Bellator had the rights to match any offer provided by another promotion, something Alvarez claimed was impossible due to the different business models of each company.
If it was a match, if it was a 100% match, I would have no problem going to fight for Bellator, zero problem. The issue has to do with being fair. And if the contract says at the end we get a chance to match, I said okay to that 4 years ago. In our eyes, this is not a match, you know? This is the difference of a lot of money. And it's hard for me to sign on a dotted line. This is the difference of a lot of money.
As one big star left the promotion, Bellator filled the void with two from the UFC. In the summer of 2013, the company announced the signings of former light heavyweight champions Tito Ortiz and Quinton Rampage Jackson, with plans for the two to headline the company's first pay-per-view at Bellator 106, only for Tito to withdraw due to a neck injury and Rampage instead being placed in the company's light heavyweight Grand Prix. Both Rampage and Tito would appear when the company rescheduled the show for Bellator 120, Tito submitting Alexander Shlemenko in his debut, and Rampage scoring a unanimous decision over King Mo Lawal. The card also featured one of the company's biggest ever upsets, as the comparatively unknown Will Brooks defeated Michael Chandler to win the company's lightweight title. The show pulled an estimated 100,000 pay-per-view buys, making it one of the biggest non-UFC cards to take place in the US, but its aftermath attracted further controversy. In December of 2014, Rampage announced he'd signed a deal to return to the UFC due to claiming Bellator had voided their contract due to broken promises stemming from the card. His opponent that night was similarly hostile when it came to Rebney's management behind the scenes.
I personally think he's a bitch, and if I had a chance to see him, I'd put them hands on him. He's a liar. He can't make eye contact with me, dog. He's just a liar. No one respected him, really. They thought that he was a good businessman. You know what I'm saying? He spoke with lawyer terms, stuff like that, but when it came down to it, he was out of tune and out of touch with the MMA media and MMA crowd, the MMA audience, the MMA everything.
The biggest moment of Rebney's Bellator would also be the last. Just 4 weeks after Rampage vs. Mo, Viacom announced Rebney, along with company president Tim Donaher, had been relieved of their duties, being replaced by former Strikeforce boss Scott Coker, who set about rebuilding the promotion in Viacom's image. Rebney returned to the sports focus in 2016 when he was named an advisor to the Mixed Martial Arts Athletics Association, one of the latest attempts at advocating for the unionization of MMA fighters. The group included UFC stars Cain Velasquez, George St. Pierre, and Donald Cerrone, although the latter's disassociation with the group was almost immediate.
It's just a couple of people on the board that I didn't know were there, like Bjorn, that he's not someone that I want to work with. So, clearing that up with Dana, and just, it's good. We're good. I'm happy.
While his standing among fans remains divisive, it's important to remember the role that Rebney played in mixed martial arts, leading Bellator to become the sport's second biggest promotion and providing a first pedestal to some of the sport's all-time greats, all in an era that many still consider the golden age for the promotion. Bellator, meanwhile, underwent a significant transformation under Scott Coker's stewardship, but you'll have to tune in next time for more on that. This is the INC. Please like, share, and subscribe. Post your feedback in the comments and donate to our Patreon page for hours of exclusive content.